We're back at it. I've got all the valves installed and the new valve seals, valve stem seals you can see in there. And again, I've measured all the pre-chambers and I started to torque down the collar nuts. It says 150 to 180 Newton meters. I picked 170, which is 125 pounds of torque. And can't really do that on a bench. I think it's got to be on the engine because that's so much torque that it slides sideways and tries to fall off the bench. So I probably got him at like 90 right now. And I got my Mexican helper over here, Jim.
What's up?
That's going to help me put, we're going to lift it up and go ahead and set the engine, or set the head on the block and put the gasket on there. And then I'm going to try to route the timing chain through the there's a gear, a pulley, or whatever you call it, right here. It is. So it's right there in the head. So I want to try to put this on there and then route that chain through there. And then I can crimp the chain. Gasket on the engine, and I'm going to put the head on in a minute. Jim's out here working on his base. What kind of base is this?
This is a Warwick streamer from the custom shop. It's a Jasmine, which refers to the pickup configuration. But
wow, look at that. What kind of wood is that?
that's actually maple.
Looks really good. This is Rollo. Rollo, smile for the camera. Can you smile? Sometimes he smiles.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, what are you doing, Rollo?
You like pizza?
What about breakfast? You want some breakfast? He looked at the camera for that. All right, we're going to put this head on here in a second. So literally we just carried the head from over there and we got here and held it like, you know, an inch above the engine while I grabbed the chain and pulled it through here so it could ride on that gear right there. And then there's a dowel pin right here, and as soon as you line it up, it just drops right down on there. And there's no bolts or anything in here yet, but it's just sitting on the gasket, and I'll probably put a couple of bolts in just to hold it to make sure, and then finish routing this timing chain, because that's the only part of the build that you're like not really sure how to assemble in what order in order to get that chain routed correctly. This appears to be the easiest way to do it. Here are the cylinder head bolts. They've been taken out of the engine. This engine's been apart one time, and the service manual says here's how you determine if they need to be renewed. There's two different versions. You have the neck down version, which is what's on this engine, and then the straight shank. This is the new version, and they're meant to stretch. So you have 3 links. So we're going to start like the one that's 104 millimeters. They say renew it if it's greater than or equal to 105.5 millimeters. These measurements are actually taken. I was measuring from the top of the bolt to the bottom, and they're actually taken from the bottom of the head of the bolt. So, for example, again, really hard to do one-handed, but if I measure this, all right, it's about 104.5 when I put it on the bottom of the bolt, and that's more like it. That's within spec, 104.5, so it has a little bit of stretch. The next one is 119. So the 119, again, impossible to do with one hand here. That's like 120. Here we go. It's like 120.16. And they're saying 120.5 is when you should renew it. So I'm actually seeing that these can be reused. There we go. So, there we go. See how it seats right, the little angle seats right into the end of the bolt. This is 119.67, which started at 119, now it's 119.67. The 144, let me adjust these out. So I'm going to go to just, 142. And I'm sorry, it was 144, so I know this is brutal to watch me try to do this with one hand. Come on. Okay. It's like 144.38. So I got to get that right there. That. Yeah, 144.2. Okay, so I measured them wrong first. They're supposed to be measured from underneath the head bolt. So these can all be reused. So I'm going to go just take some rough measurements on all of them just to make sure. So that was the learning process. The way you measure bolts is not from the top of the bolt to the end. It's from right under the head to the end. And when I measured all the bolts like that, they are all within the safe range, and they do not need to be renewed. Because the first way I did it, they were all like, 10 millimeters too long. I'm like, how the hell did they stretch that much? But that's because it included the head. So I'm going to reuse these and put them back in the engine, because the field service manual says you can reuse them as long as they haven't reached this maximum length. The service manual says to lubricate the bolts before you install them. So I'm just putting some 15W40 oil on them, and that'll help get the correct torque setting. And let's see, I think these are the tall ones, so they probably go up there. I'm terrible with this camera, aren't I? Anyway, you guys get the idea. Going through the torque sequence, you can see you start with number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do it in order according to the diagram, and there's several stages. So with the version of the bolt that I have, which is the neck down bolt, step 1, torque them all to 40. Then go back, step 2, all to 70. And then you wait for 10 minutes. And then you come back and you do an angle of rotation 90 on all of them. And then you do another angle of rotation 90. So I'm just going through that process now. Completed the first phase of torquing. And you can see what I did. I just put a mark. So first I went to 40 on all of them, and I put a mark as I went, and then I went to 70 on all of them. So I actually, 40 newton meters is like 29 pounds. I accidentally set it to 40 foot-pounds. So I torqued it to 40 foot-pounds first, which is a little bit, I don't know, it's like 10 more Newton meters than you're supposed to, but I don't think it's going to be that precise. And then I recognized my error and then did a final torque to 51 foot-pounds. So it was 40 and then 51. And now I'm waiting 10 minutes. I didn't find a torque for these bolts. There's one there. So after I torqued all these, I took these to 20 foot-pounds, because that's about, for that size bolt, 20 foot-pounds should be about right. And there's two in there, and those have been torqued. So where I did mess up on the first round, instead of going to 40, I went to 53 Newton meters because I forgot to convert from foot-pounds. So I did 40 foot-pounds, which is 53 Newton meters. Then step 2, I ended up at 70. So I was like 13 Newton meters over on the first round of torquing. But once you torque it, you don't want to take it out because bolts stretch. So anyway, there's 2 more stages of torquing. I don't think that 13, Newton meters is going to make or break the engine. Not really a big deal. But that's what I get for having to convert from metric to SAE all the time. Anyway, I'm just waiting 10 minutes, and then I'm supposed to go 90 degrees, and then 90 degrees again. Got everything torqued to spec, and man, that last 90 degrees was tough. I actually put on a face shield in case the torque wrench slipped or a bolt broke, and I didn't want to knock my teeth out. But I broke a sweat doing the last 90 degrees. That's the tightest I've ever put anything. That last 90 degrees is a lot. And you can feel how it stretches the bolts, and they reach max clamping force. So I just put the wrench here and swung it around 90 degrees on all of them. And then I went back, put the wrench there, swung it around to 90 degrees. Give or take 10 degrees. And that thing's on there. There's no way in hell. Like I said, I've never put a bolt that tight. Next thing that I have to do, now that the head's on, I can actually put the torque on that's needed, is tighten the pre-chambers. You can see I've got the tool on there. Again, JTC Tools 4544. It's an excellent tool. And you can see it locks down into the little slot. See, there's slots in the pre-chamber collar nuts, and I've got to torque these to 125 foot-pounds. I think it says like 150 to 180 Newton meters, which is, I just picked 170, which is 125 foot-pounds. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, today I'm putting in timing chain, one of the guide rails, and saw something interesting. So this is the Phoebe. I guess that's, oh, sorry, this goes over here. This is the Phoebe. This is the original Mercedes. So the original Mercedes I'm replacing because you can see the wear marks in there from the chain. But I noticed something interesting. This appears to be a hard plastic. And this Phoebe replacement is rubber. That is rubber. It's like a hard rubber. So not the same material. I'm not sure if this used to be rubber and it's just hardened, but actually, yeah, it's it feels a little flexible. Wow, that must be just hardened from years of heat cycling. I guess that's what's going on here, because it feels like plastic. This is definitely softer. I mean, definitely night and day difference. So, hell, I mean, that's the part, that's the replacement part, and so I'm going to put it on there. So, like I said, I haven't put the timing chain link in there because I don't want to put it together and then not be able to get the timing chain in there. So right now I'm at the point where I've installed this chain tensioner guide rail, and you see the little stub right there on the end. You can see it. Let's see, let me turn on the light. There you go. See how I've got one in there? That's the one from Phoebe, and yeah, there you go. You can see it right there, and it comes down and is secured with this little guy. See it right there? And so I'm going to put some, where did it go? Here it is. I'm going to put some of this aviation sealant, and I'm just going to put it, you know, around the plug when I put it in, because Mercedes says to put a little sealant. Anyway, I'm going to do that now. So now that I've got just a little bit of sealant around there, I use this slide hammer. There's an attachment here and a bolt in the end of the attachment, and just screws on. So I'm just going to put that in there. There we go. And tap it in with the slide hammer. And you can see the threaded bolt in there, and I just tapped it in there with the slide hammer. And you want it to be just below the surface of the block, because the front I guess cranks cover goes right there. So, and this, see how it overlaps a little bit with that, so you don't want to interfere with the seal of the front crank cover. So that's got to countersink into the block a little bit, and that's how you know you've gone far enough. I've figured out, you know, how to route the timing chain through the through the guide rails, and got it around all the you know, pulleys, and so I got the guide rails in there, and I'm just putting in the link now. One of these links is actually going to go down in the middle here, and then the other one will go on the outside. And then I borrowed the crimping tool from my buddies up at they own a Mercedes shop up the street, and they had it. So I'm just going to put it on there and then crimp it, and I'm done with this timing chain, which was a pain in the ass to put all that on. I think the timing chain and intermediate shaft bushings and seals and all that kind of stuff was the stuff that required the most reading and understanding. The rest of it's pretty simple. So what I've done so far is I put, see the little, there's a little center link there. So that goes through, I pushed it through the center link, and now it's starting to come out the other side. And I'm going to use the crimping tool to push it through and crimp it. What's cool about the Mercedes crimping tool, or let's see, made in USA, AST 5843. What's cool is that that's magnetic. So see how it holds my little piece on there? So let me show how this works. There's two parts. The first part, you put the link in there and press it on, because this link does not just slip right over. It's like a press fit. So you press it on, and then you flip it around, and there's the crimping side of it. So see how that see how it slides on? That crimps it after you press it on. So there's no way in hell I'm going to do this with one hand, but here we go. So on the back side here, see there's a little groove. There you go, you can see the little groove. that slides over the two pieces there, which are already crimped on this side. And then it presses on over here. So I'll get it on there and then record again. All right, I've got the tool on the chain. And you see the pins in the back are in that little slot. And then, come on, focus. So here's the crimping part of the tool. It's about to just press into that. So I'm just going to tighten that down while holding on to this, and I'll show you the crimp that it makes. Okay, here is the finished crimp. Basically, it just, you can see it mashed a little section there, and see if it'll focus down here. There you go. You can see how it just mashed a couple of sections, and that's enough because this has to be pressed on anyway. It's already a press fit. You can see there's the Mercedes crimps by the machine at the factory. But that's going to do it. Timing chain is on. So I had the camshaft pulley on backwards. You want it where you see the emblems and numbers. There's a Mercedes emblem and the stampings. You want that facing the engine because the back of the sprocket here is not as thick as it is right here. So when you flip it around, it pulls your chain a little closer into the engine, and that's what you need to do in order to have the chain centered, here we go, on this guide right here. Otherwise the chain sticks out this way a little too far and it's not centered on the guide. There we go. See, the guide's just barely sticking out past the chain. So that's how you want that on there. I had it on there backwards, and I went back and looked at my disassembly videos and saw how the stampings were on the back of the pulley. I just assumed they'd put the stampings on this side so you could see them rather than on the back side, but there they are, they're on the back side. Anyway, enough for today.